Chuck, I think a lot of people would want to know what Bible translation do you use and why?
When I study, this may surprise people, I use the New American Standard Ryrie Study Bible.
Okay.
This is precisely the one I use. It is the most accurate, I didn't say readable, it is the most accurate translation. And when I'm studying, I want accuracy.
Okay.
I don't want to have to fuss around with it. Is this really what the Greek is saying? And though I do check, rarely do I find something in the New American Standard Bible that needs to be corrected or clarified. Some things need to be amplified, and of course that's our job as teachers. Now, when I teach and when I'm reading the Bible, I use the New Living Translation, not the Living Bible. There's a difference. The New Living Translation is really a scholarly work, but it is readable. Okay. Because in our congregation, we have people, believe me, who've never held a Bible in their hands. I know that's tough to believe, but there are some. Yeah. They tell me. And others say, I just got this. My wife just got it. It's a real thick, big Bible. You know, they think it's what they want. And I'll say, really what you want to get is, and I'll tell them about this, New Living Translation. That's helpful. Now, if you really want to go a little further into the vernacular of our times, the Message. Mm-hmm. Eugene Peterson has translated that Bible, and it is a paraphrase of both Old and New Testament in today's language. Now, it isn't silly. It isn't so extreme that you go, where did you get that? But it does include some of the sayings of our day. It might say, she was mad as a hornet. That would be our expression today. Or, he didn't give her the time of day. Or, when Jesus says, woman, your faith is great, I checked it. Peterson writes in the Message, you're something else. Woman, you are something else. That's the idea of what he was saying. Okay. Now, the New King James Bible is a reliable reference, and I would say certainly more so than the original 1611 version. The New King James has brought a lot of the archaic words up to today's words. Very reliable. When it comes to the New International Version, the 1984 version would be the one I would prefer and would recommend. And, you know, I've got a shelf full of all the versions. Anyone I've left out that's helped you?
Well, I think there are, I think especially in English, you have so much. It's probably helpful to people to understand, why are there translations? Why don't you just give me what Jesus said? And so I think it's important for people to go back or to realize that the original writings of the Bible, the Old Testament, was written in Hebrew,
yes,
or at least mostly in Hebrew, and the New Testament was written originally in Greek, in a common Greek known as Koine Greek.
Yes.
But that's what the original is, and because people aren't readers of Hebrew and Greek, and the other language that's used from time to time is Aramaic. We'll come back to that in a moment.
Right.
But so the Bible has been translated from the very beginning. That it has been translated into many languages so that people could understand it. In fact, even the Jews who were speaking Hebrew, in light of some of the events of the intertestamental period when Alexander the Great comes and so on, Hebrew starts to fall away, and they translate the Old Testament, that's Genesis through Malachi, into Greek,
yes,
so that they can understand it or so that they can teach it to their kids.
Yeah, and folks don't realize when Paul, for example, refers to a verse of Scripture, he's often quoting from the Greek rendering of the Old Testament.
Of the Hebrew
Because that was the Bible in their day.
Yeah.
And often it's easy to forget, people in the New Testament days didn't have a New Testament.
Right.
They only had the Old Testament. And Paul writes in Romans 15, whatever was written in earlier times was written for our learning. That's Old Testament.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we through patience and comfort from the Scriptures might have hope. That's Old Testament. I've heard people say, why do you want to teach the Old Testament? We really are interested in the New Testament, but it's all relevant, all inspired.
I heard someone say once, and I thought this was helpful. He was a scholar of the Old Testament, and he was talking about the benefits of the New Testament. And he said, the New Testament is the original commentary on the Old Testament.
Very good. Yeah, very good.
I think it's important when some people hear that it's Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic.
Yes.
They might picture a whole bunch of mixture. This is Aramaic, and this is Greek, and this is Hebrew. Primarily in our English Bibles, when it's written in Aramaic, the English Bible preserves the Aramaic so that the actual reader can see those words and then gives the meaning of it again in English. So
Jesus' words on the cross, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. And we've all heard those words. We didn't know what he was. That's his native tongue.
that's the Aramaic.
Aramaic.
And then our English Bibles will tell us what that means.
Yes.
My God, why have you forsaken me?
Exactly. Exactly.
Or in the Old Testament, if you remember in the book of Daniel, there is the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
And the writing is recorded in Aramaic. And our English Bibles preserve that, and then they interpret that, your days are numbered.
Isn't that interesting that the God would choose to do it that way?
Fascinating.
You know, it is all fascinating, and make no mistake, when the Bible is recorded by human beings, and they're literally copying from one earlier ancient manuscript to another, they may miss a word. Now, skeptics will say, see there, Bible isn't inspired. No, we all acknowledge the translated copies are not the original copies.
Right.
And we have no copy of the original.
Right.
If we did, it would be the biggest shrine in the entire world, or we would be worshiping that original text. What we have is a very close, reliable text of Scripture with rarely are there even human errors included there. But when they are, an honest teacher will say, far as we can tell, this was not in the earliest manuscripts.
Yeah.
And we clarify that.
And our Bibles are very helpful to explain that.
Yeah.
All translations.
A study Bible will do that for you.
Especially those, yes.